This is my rendition of a Nerf version of a corner shot, basically a blaster that can peek around walls. I'm going to use the Disruptor because it only has a 2-inch pump draw, so it keeps everything nice and compact. I'm going to make basically a kind of receiver for the blaster using some cutting board, and using that hole in the blaster, I'm just going to put some zip ties through that. Watch me struggle a little bit here. Once I get that mounted on, I'm going to need some way to secure a hinge to it. I'm going to use some polycarbonate or Lexan side plates that you can get right from the hardware store. These are only 1/8 of an inch thick, but they work just fine for what we need to do. Screw those right in. And then I need a way of securing the rear of it in place. So I'm just going to use some 1-inch PVC, and I'm going to put some cutting board circles in each side to make basically a solid cylinder. Screw those in place, and then screw it right up against the blaster into the polycarbonate. So basically this thing is rock solid now, it's not going to go anywhere on us. Next, I'm going to just make the part of our hinge that's going to go on the side plates, make sure there's just enough room for that thing to actuate. And then the pivot point of our hinge is just going to be some 1/2-inch CPVC. I'm going to use all cutting board to make this hinge. And looking back, you can probably buy a prefabricated hinge if you want, but I wasn't exactly in that mindset. I wanted to make this completely homemade. Give that a good test fit, make sure it's nice and snug. You want this to be, to have a nice tight fit, because you're going to have a lot of leverage on it once the thing is assembled. Skipping forward a couple of steps, I've made a bit of the body as well. That pump is attached directly to the actual pump on the blaster too, so you can pump it away from the rear. Now we're going to use some tubing and some old Bic pens, as well as some paracord rope to make a trigger setup. I'm going to demonstrate that right here. So the rope runs all the way through the bottom body tube, and that's going to be attached to a trigger. First, I need to mount a pistol grip basically first. So that's going to go there. Get an idea of where that's going. I'm going to disassemble this a bit, and then we're going to basically make the inside of our trigger. Now that's 1/2-inch PVC. It's too big to fit in the 1-inch PVC. So I'm just drilling some holes and sinking some screws in there to basically artificially expand the outer diameter of that pipe on the inside. This will make sense when I put it together. I'm going to sink some screws into the main body tube and also into the handle as well. That'll lock our handle in there nice and tight. I have 3 or 4 of those locking that in. And then we're going to start the channel where our trigger is going to go. I'm going to just use some drills and mark out where I need that slot and just drill out some holes and then cut it with a knife like we usually do. Then I'm going to cut out a piece of our trigger from some polycarbonate and attach basically our trigger rope right into the trigger pipe. Reassemble everything, and then we can give everything a test fit. We're going to put our trigger in now, just line it up with a screw that we have in our inside pipe and screw that right in place from a hole I drilled on the top of the body tube. And then this is basically the assembled body. I threw a stock on the back as well. So now we can pump it and pull the trigger from the rear, but we still need a locking mechanism. And this is what I came up with. Basically, it's just a simple steel plate that fixes into some slots. So here, pull it back, and a spring pushes it into a notch. Pull that steel rod back, or that steel plate, and it locks into a notch. It's decently good for what it is. I would redesign it definitely if making it again. I also added mirrors, as you see here, to allow me to peek around corners. I added bigger ones later on. They're much more helpful. So you can fire this straight, or you could fire it at a 60-degree angle on either side. It locks into place because of that locking mechanism I mentioned before. You can go up, down, left, right, and you can get a decent sight picture on this once you get used to it. And it does take some getting used to with this. On the next iteration, I'm definitely going to be using some kind of a camera setup, maybe an old camcorder, and scrap the viewfinder as well and put that right where a sight should be. But once you get good at this, you can actually start shooting with some accuracy as well. This is about 20 feet away, but you know, it still works. Anyway, thanks for watching. This is my Nerf corner shot.
Next objective, 1 star.